Good morning.
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 Just uploading the combined version.
Ooh.
Yes, did you get my message, Lisa? I wasn't sure what you were combining. I thought the thing that had Duncan's initials at the end was the whole thing.
No, I'm just adding in your last comment now. Yes, sorry.
Hi, people.
Hello.
Sorry to hear Chris is feeling rough.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have had reactions.
Yeah. My daughter was laid up for several days.
Really? Gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I mean, she works for the NHS, so all her team were done. And they were all really bad, but they were all young.
Was that AstraZeneca?
Sorry?
Was that
AstraZeneca, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she had, really high fever,
Gosh.
bad migraine type thing, so she couldn't sort of read anything or move her eyes, or so that the whole team was wiped out for several days. So I don't know, but they recovered.
Good.
It makes me wonder whether I got a placebo or something instead of the real thing.
It seems to be, well, the reading that I've done, it seems to be young people, women much more than men, young much more than old, and if you actually have had the coronavirus at some stage, which we think Louise might have done last February before anybody knew really what was what. That makes it worse too. So, but I had Pfizer, and I gather for that one it's the second jab, which is the worst one. So I'm waiting to see on that. But,
all this real world evidence.
Absolutely, yes. There's nothing like a bit of anecdote.
No, exactly.
I had AstraZeneca on Thursday.
How was it?
So I wasn't very well on Friday.
Oh.
The weekend, really. Yesterday I was still a bit funny, but I think today I'm raring to go.
There you are. How's that effect?
Proof. Okay, so I think we have one version in the Dropbox.
Are we allowed to look at it?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're allowed to look at it, yep.
As long as we don't comment.
Yeah.
Why don't we save it as a PDF and look at it as that?
Yeah, do you know how to do that, Duncan?
I'll
Des?
I'll do.
Yep.
Give me a
Okay.
second.
I didn't know if Dropbox had a special feature or something.
So you probably have to do it in Word and then.
So we have more comments at the beginning than the end, which I think is
Yeah.
natural. I certainly ran out of time for my own deadline.
Okay, so there's a version that
Oh, yes,
either has PDF at the end or nothing, depending on your.
there it
And
appears.
then that should be reasonably, and that. So I think it's a PDF, and it seems to have all the comments in. So good for looking at. And Lisa can have the actual original open if she wants to be the person who makes changes.
Yes, so
work?
Oh gosh.
yeah,
Okay, that's a bit.
there's a lot.
Well, I think one person at most. I mean, it probably is
Yeah.
a good idea if one person has the doc version so
Yeah.
they can make changes, and the rest of us use the PDF version so we don't make changes in it. I find it quite easy sometimes to make changes just without meaning to, or look at something and you find that it thinks you've edited it.
Yeah.
So
So I think we can just go through and agree on the wordings and things like that. It's probably the best course of action. Do you want me to share screen, or do we want to look at
Yeah,
our
that'll
own
be
version?
useful, actually, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got it open in Word because I find that's just a lot faster than the Dropbox. Okay. Should I zoom in?
A little bit would be good. But
Yeah. Okay. So we don't have an abstract yet, but we can come back to that. Sorry, I'm trying to find a place to put your cameras. Okay, right. So Dennis, the introduction is yours. So are there any suggested
well,
that you disagree with?
I'd broken a sentence by having which had a sentence beginning with but, which didn't have a verb, which I think actually is perfectly allowable, but perhaps it's an odd Dennis style, so I've just put it as one sentence. There's a comment on the repeat of unusual, but I think it really was meant to be repeating the same word because it's sort of making a point.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so being a bit of other minor. There's a question whether you refer to R or R naught, or indeed RT. I thought perhaps just since it refers to being familiar in news headlines, I thought perhaps one should just use R actually.
Yeah, be good.
Because that's what actually appears in the news headlines, isn't it?
You should probably define it. You should probably say modelling
Okay.
parameters such as R, comma, the basic reproductive ratio or something.
Well, or we could give. Why don't we refer to the IDP paper on R naught? I think.
could do.
Oh, is it? There is one, isn't there? Yeah.
I
Yeah,
did
yeah,
have a
so-
question. Who is your target audience when you're writing this? Because it was a bit confused between whether it's a modeler or a policymaker or someone else.
Well, I think the point is both modelers and policymakers ought to be reading it. If it's
Ideally, it would be both, but Epidemics Journal is probably read in general more by modelers than policymakers.
Yeah.
It's probably, yes, I think inevitably it's more from the helping modelers deal with politicians and policymakers from the other way around. But
Yeah, so at least put in a reference to the R paper maybe so that because the language drops in and out. So everybody knew what R was around the foot and mouth epidemic, but then
Well, I think the
it's forgotten again.
Or maybe just stick, say, with modelling parameters such as the reproduction number R
Mhm.
and the
Yeah.
reference. And then-
yeah, you call it the reproduction number. That's how. So. And then just R rather than
Yeah.
no subscript, and put in the but make a note to ref IDP R0 paper.
It's Robin Thompson, isn't it?
yeah, I
It's probably Thompson et al. Is it?
Yeah.
should think so. 2021, no doubt.
Well,
Okay, we can add that in properly after.
not sure where it's got to. It might be 2020. I'm not sure.
Oh, do you think so? Yeah, I suppose it could be. No, you're right.
We better check it out.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I mean, if it was, I mean, these things when they're put online straight away, you don't have the usual.
Okay.
Can I accept the wording suggestions for this paragraph, Dennis? Sorry.
I think I would stick with that, not which, in line 3 if we're going to be sticklers.
Yes,
I think it's
I agree with that.
the defining reference, so it should be that. It should be that.
Yeah,
I don't do which from that.
COVID-19. I mean, I sort of feel that we shouldn't have to write that out in full. Is it? The other thing, I suppose, is are we, Valerie? I mean, you as co-editor, and are we going to have COVID in capitals all at 19?
I don't know. I noticed somebody had somehow. I thought we were just having an initial letter, initial C as capital and the rest in lowercase. But I've noticed it been creeping more in several of the papers to capitals throughout. So maybe that's the approved, agreed style.
On the lines.
I just went for the style you used in the R paper, I think.
Yeah, I think
Consistent, of
I think
course.
it's-
could leave it as it is. Could we leave that though to the editors? I think it's one of, I think there are bound to be a number of things to do with consistency across papers, and we'll look at that when we see all the papers, and because it would be best if they all use the same thing, wouldn't it? I don't have an axe to grind as to which one it is. Okay, that's fine for that paragraph.
Then we have comment from Carrie Ann.
Oh, sorry, I reworded it anyway.
Oh, okay.
So if you're happy with my rewording, because I think the wrong noun was being used or something.
Happy, Dennis?
Oh yes, that's. It's a question of seeing what it looks like when you
Yeah.
when you do that, make all the changes.
Oh yeah, we just dealt with that. Okay. That'll just remind me to add the reference. Okay, next paragraph. Oh dear.
I mean, I agree with the comment that the last phrase here about governments being helped to better, quotes, follow the science is a shorthand for what we're actually going to recommend. But I think it's, I think since we come back to it so comprehensively with throughout the rest of the paper, I think just having a simple phrase like this is okay here.
Yeah, I suggested something. I can't see it at the moment. It'll be down in those suggestions somewhere.
This one.
The devil's advocate.
No, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
But I think
Wherever
I
it
find a
was,
similar
in the
comment.
one
Yeah.
above, Lisa, where I put how about, I think it's in there.
Yeah.
Governments can better use the science to make informed decisions.
I think,
But the point, but the thing is, we're gonna come back to that. I mean, the point here is
Well,
how, I mean, that I think that you lose the sort of simplicity of the
yeah.
writing here, because it's the first line talks about claiming to follow the science, and I think if you want to modify it, I think you ought to go full steam and put and add something to the effect that we'll come back to whether that's the right way of looking at it later in the paper, with possibly a reference forward.
So, I mean, if you want to do that, you could say identify ways in which governments can or should follow the science. I don't know. But I had a similar sort of thought with Valerie, really, whether governments should be following the science, because
Can or should I quite like. I mean,
Because the point was rather that they were claiming to follow the science, but not necessarily following it.
yeah.
But then what was the science?
It's
then there's
two
the
points.
budget
It's 2 points really, Kerry. And I mean, there's one is the sort of duplicitous one, if you like, where they claim to follow the science when they're not really. And the second one is just exactly what it is you really want them to do, is following the science a good way of describing it.
It's a political term, isn't it? We don't necessarily, it's kind of sheltering politicians from their responsibility, really, essentially.
Yeah.
Um,
Can we also, if you can open Kerry-Ann's earlier comment, that one, yeah. Because she made a suggestion about that too, and perhaps we ought to deal with that one first, because it's earlier in the paragraph.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose that's Graham Medley made a similar point, really. What happens when you have two disagreeing groups of policy makers and scientists? Because you can always get more scientists.
well, I mean, the thing is, how much do we want to say in an opening paragraph? I mean, I think we do want to go into all these things, but is this the place to do it? I mean, exploring the difficulties involved, the explicit point that Kerry-Ann's making there could be fitted in by expanding that. One of the difficulties involved, obviously, is where you have more than one modelling approach, giving two different lots of scientists giving different advice, obviously.
But I think we could
And
acknowledge
the second
that.
point is what you mean by following the science, and I think.
The
I think that
implication
putting it in quotation marks was meant to indicate that it was an expression which needed examination in depth, which might turn out to be meaningless or the wrong thing. I mean, that surely is what one's doing in putting it in quotes.
Well, I think it's just the sort of statement, can better follow the science. It sounds like it's a positive thing.
yeah.
I think
And also that there's one science, it seems to me. I mean, because as Kerry-Ann says here, it sort of implies that if they did follow the science, there's one science and it's going to give them the right answer. And so then this government responses have varied widely, sort of implies that was because they weren't following the science, and yet that would be inevitable anyway. So
well, I mean, you could, yeah.
it seems those two sentences conflicted to me, because
I
it
agree.
implied there was a single science that was correct, but actually different governments could have been following their government scientific advice and had wildly variable success because their advice, their science was different, which was the case for, well, there's quite a few different examples of.
The thing is, I mean, of course it's conflicted, Kerry. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know. I obviously sort of see the role of this paragraph a bit differently from you. I mean, this paragraph is meant to be opening up something which is obviously going to need to be taken to pieces and looked into and examined later on in the paper. I mean, if you're saying we really have to hint that, make it more explicit that that's the kind of thing we'll do, I think you could.
Yeah,
I mean, for instance, after the difficulties involved, you could put brackets, e.g., conflicting models.
I think that, yeah, a subtle change in wording would help it. So
I think you either add a sentence at the end to explain that there are subtleties we're going to go into, there are conflicts and subtleties we're going to go into later on, or you could possibly do it, as I say, by just slipping in a few words, perhaps in brackets, like the difficulties involved, you could put, as I say, suggest in brackets, e.g. conflicting models.
Well, I think,
and I think in ways in which governments can, quotes, better follow the science in future pandemics.
That's a kind of political trap that we might be falling into, essentially, I think.
yeah, I
maybe
don't
just
like
remove
that.
yet. If you remove the word yet, then it kind of deals with it, sort of. Because you're not saying, as a consequence of my first sentence, the following sentence follows. You can just say that responses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a softer way to say it.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I mean, sure, but I mean, the implication, which I think you're wanting to spell out, is that the conflict set up by sentence 1 against sentence 2 is that there may not be a single thing such as the science. So, so I would, I mean,
I think the problem is that that second sentence sort of implies that because they had varied responses and variable success, they were necessarily not following the science. And I don't think that's...
it wasn't meant to.
Well, that's sort of the way it reads.
That's the way I read it. Yeah.
That's why I thought, if we say, I forget what I did suggest now, but something about science does not giving a single answer or something.
Well, I mean, I think it might be better to add a sentence at the end of it, might it? Exploring the difficulty involved in identifying ways.
I think it comes down to...
So you can say science may not give a single answer, and I don't know, I think it's...
Perhaps we should move on from that paragraph and come back to it, because we're going to get stuck for a long time.
Yeah. Could we just leave it in the simple form for the moment? Because I think the helped isn't really wanted. I think in which governments can better.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so we need to come back to that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm happy with that paragraph. I don't know about others.
No, I'm happy with the improvements in wording.
Buttons to click.
So I didn't know whether you should change that to both politicians and modelers risk being criticised. Because Neil Ferguson's been heavily criticised and is still being criticised over foot and mouth, never mind current.
Yeah, you could say both modelers and politicians risk being criticised. But I think that, well, except I think the point of it was that it's the politicians who are going to be taking the decision, and that's and so the problem is the problem really is with the politicians, isn't it? I mean, I think modelers. Well, no, maybe modelers are
But
frightened.
if you want the modelers to follow the science,
Yeah. I think it's more. It was. I mean, I can see the modelers are included here, but it's really.
So the politicians,
Yeah, what I was thinking of,
and then they transfer the blame as quickly as they can.
well, the politicians make the decision on the expenditure, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't criticise the modelers for major expenditure.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I think in the UK, there's that if you look back at what happened a year ago, I mean, part of the reason I think why the UK delayed lockdown was that the Prime Minister had an awful lot of people on his own party, never mind the opposition, who viewed the disruption to the economy as a bigger problem than taking action, taking early action. And
also,
and suppose that somehow the Prime Minister had, with a magic wand, had locked us all down, let's say for the month of March last year, and the result had actually been wonderful, that we had no pandemic. He might still be criticised because people would say, well, nothing happened, so you didn't need to spend all that money making nothing happen. I just think it's the politicians are on the front line here.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think I'd leave it.
What was your comment about environmental, Karen? I didn't quite.
I was trying to capture. I didn't know whether social quite captured that. Actually, the biophysical environment affects the disease dynamics.
I did wonder about putting in environment originally. I just thought it was perhaps a little.
So make it political, social, and environmental differences.
Yeah. Well, yes, it's. Okay. I don't think you need the comma after social.
No.
Because it's a list of three.
We're not using the Oxford comma.
I think it's.
Or because you started with however or something. I don't know. Yeah. Many commas.
Well, it's.
Depends on your interpretation of the Oxford comma.
Yeah, I know nothing about grammar, so leave me out of it.
Well, I think, as I understand it,
Let's discuss grammar. Never get anywhere.
let's not get into
Yeah, let's move on.
Moving swiftly
Well,
on.
we're ahead.
I changed in the next para. I changed the reference because I really think the whole. I changed the reference.
Yeah, I agree.
To the whole issue because I mean, there's a specialist paper that was there previously, but also, I mean, the whole volume, and in particular the introduction to it, very much make this point. So I think referring to the whole volume is probably best.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's definitely a better reference. Oh dear, I might have accepted that first. Encourage rather than make. was a suggestion.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's make, because come on, it's the outcome that matters. They can be encouraged as much as you like. If they don't do it, we're stuffed, you know. I do think it's make.
Okay. And then we take the 2 out.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that was. Okay, right.
I don't
Okay.
think we need italics for pandemic. I mean, because we use the word emphasis, so in the 4th line there.
Okay, you think it's clear enough without
Well, I think
italics?
since the word, you know, the immediate main word before it is emphasis, I don't think you
Yeah.
need to put in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Oops, no, hang on, you're on risk of. Okay.
And then I think this discussion came to the conclusion that we don't need the bit in brackets.
I don't think we need the brackets.
Yeah, I think it is more
Confusing.
complicated to say it than not.
I think we just have them.
Great to see things disappear, isn't it?
Very satisfying.
Do we need a comma after policy making there? If we're running that into the rest of it?
Yes, I think so. Boom. Okay.
Good.
Where's it gone? Oh, right. Hang on. Okay, so that's that paragraph.
I didn't really like starting a sentence with an and, because I got told off a lot for that.
Where is it?
Just above the infographic. Does it need and, or could it just be?
Oh, there.
Yeah, no, I think it does need an and. I mean, I think that's
I really like starting sentences with ands.
yeah.
At the end,
No, and I think
fight with your teacher elsewhere.
I'm very traumatized on it.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
no, I mean, there's a fault in which people you might get into a habit of starting every sentence with an and or a whole lot in succession for no particular reason. But
There we go.
as long as it's not done too often. Did we have? Sorry.
Sorry, I was just moving the diagram back.
Yeah, sure. No, I've got the impression that we've got the paragraph about building on the work of Metcalfe et al. Twice, but maybe it's just.
I think
Sorry, yeah.
Lisa just moved it around. So it moved.
Yeah, there's only one of them. Yep.
Okay, good. Okay, so it's just it was flashing past me.
Yeah, the illustrators are drawing something for us. I've
Wow.
got no idea what it's going to look like.
Let's hope we like it when they've done it.
Yeah. There wasn't really any avenue for discussion. They just said, yes, okay, we'll give it to you on Friday. Okay. Okay, right, we're here.
You made it a bit bigger.
Oh, sorry, yes.
It shrunk somehow. Yes, I mean, a good point, Kieran. I mean, I think I thought of that, but where were the later sections in the right order? I don't know, but I'm not as much invested in those later sections. So
I think it was more given the way you've introduced it. If that makes sense to group it in the way you've introduced it, then it didn't make sense that we've.
yeah, the order. Yeah, no, take the point. Well, I think you're quite right. I mean, I think if people want to keep putting it the other way around, if people want to keep the current ordering, then they'd probably want to rewrite this bit so that we have separate sentences about 10.3 and 10.5, with the latter coming after 10.4.
You get your flow diagram again.
Yeah.
So there's no particular reason that in communication has to go between those, is there?
No, I think those are in any order, to be honest.
Yeah.
So why don't we make a provision, have the provisional thought that we might swap the order of 4 and 5, but why don't we, rather than doing that now, why don't we think about it when we get to them?
Well, are the designers of the picture, have they got the outside bit as well?
This around this thing easily.
Okay, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, so have they got that? Are we going to be going back to them asking them to swap it around, or are they just?
Well, I've tried to make it as clear as possible that I've just asked for something to go in the middle, so a sort of sketch here.
But they might get overexcited and do the whole thing.
Yeah, we'll see.
What? So just so I can do it, what shall I swap around so I can do that?
It's 4 and 5.
4 and 5. So what are we calling? 4 will be understanding competing factors, and 5 will be communication. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the icons presumably want to go with them. But it's a provisional decision, Duncan. So
yeah, no, it's fine. I'll just do both versions so I don't have to.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, is anyone particularly tied to the current order?
No.
So as you wrote the introduction, Dennis, and it made sense to you to group those together, then let's just swap it.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
but,
I agree. I think the initial ordering was somewhat arbitrary anyway. I think I just listed them. So yeah, that's fine. Duncan, the one thing I did change the icon for 6 because we didn't really know what the other one was.
I think
Yeah, fine. That's fine.
that was the coat hanger one, wasn't it?
Yeah, Valerie felt it was a coat hanger.
Yes.
So I thought there's also one that's just a wrench, but no, not a wrench.
That's good.
Yeah, but okay, that was the best I could find. Okay, so swapping 4 and 5. Yeah, so I'll leave that in so I remember to swap. I assume these word edits here are fine.
Look fine. Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll leave that in and swap. Okay. I assume the cross-referencing will be an edited decision.
yes, and it's
This is how we've done it for everything so far.
I mean, we have to, I mean, I know, and we're talking about them as sort of chapters numbers, but I'm not sure that they will have those numbers. So
we need to think. I mean, I think
certainly in the last volume, they didn't have chapter numbers, the papers.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
I mean,
and also, as things stand at the moment, numbers 1 and 2 may combine, in which case the numbering would all be out. So, for lots of reasons, I think we have to leave that.
There is a 4A, so we might still end up the later numbers are the same.
Well, yes, that's true.
I mean, I think I'm coming. I mean, one suggestion is to try and make sure that each challenge does have a sort of single word title, a single word that is an important part of its title. And then, for instance, 7 here could just be called, rather than referring to 7.5, let's say, one would be referring to like estimation section 5. And then in the references, the names estimation, the name estimation would need an entry in the references, which would tell you what which would give it its proper reference as a paper.
The
Something like that might work.
Elsevier editor might have some suggestions on the best way to do this.
But as long as we do something which clearly identifies the target, I think that we shouldn't worry about that at this stage. We'll try and sort it out in a way that it works across all the papers.
Okay, yeah, so leave it like that for now and they can change it.
Yeah.
Okay. I also had not heard of Lewis Carroll's maps.
Although I showed my
I'm with Kerry Ann.
I hadn't either. No.
I like Duncan's quote.
Yes.
Yes, so do I.
You could, yes. Well, you could put the quote in brackets. Why not?
Yeah.
After 1 mile to 1 mile, you could just put in brackets and quotes.
Oh, I don't think it needs to be in brackets. I think you just quote it.
Well, I just think it's. Oh no, sorry. I think it's a continuing sentence. No, it's the end of the sentence, isn't it? Maybe a colon is the appropriate thing. A colon followed by a quotation. Then.
Yeah, we already have a colon though, so maybe.
Would you have a colon?
Yeah.
Yes, we're already.
And although he wrote it, it's not his map, is it?
In
Is it not?
Sylvie and Bruno's, well, no, it's a character in the book's map, but I think
Okay, should I make this a new sentence and then we can colon?
Yeah, that'll work.
reminds me actually in the very first paragraph where there was my thing with a but in it. I really think I'd like a semicolon there, please.
Okay,
There's the campaign. The campaign for the preservation of the semicolon is second only to the campaign for the preservation of adverbs, which you may have noticed are rather vanishing. Perhaps you didn't. Perhaps younger people have been brought up without adverbs and don't even notice that they're missing.
I didn't notice at all. So
I'm learning grammar from my 10-year-old at the moment, and my 6-year-old particularly.
Well, if I meet you in the morning, I would say, you'd say, how are you? And I would say, I am well, which is the adverb relating to the adjective good.
My daughter would just send an emoji and not.
Sometime in the last 20 years or so, people have all gone over to using the adjective.
that's probably.
And if it's an
my fault.
adverb, it's because it refers to the verb it refers to is am. So there we are. I can see that I need to put out leaflets for the Society for the Preservation of Adverbs to. Why are you changing? The thing is, that's the reference. Lewis Carroll. Oh, you can put the brackets 18. Brackets is because it's indicating it's a reference. You're going to find it down.
Oh, right. Sorry,
Sorry.
I didn't flag that. Okay, that's a reference.
So, which is again why I had the apostrophe s after it. I think it looks a bit awkward, but I think one says Lewis Carroll space brackets 1890 apostrophe s, but.
Still think it needs to say the character name.
Sorry, it doesn't say the character.
I don't think anyone knows the character. I think they know.
Lewis Carroll is the author. Well, he's really Charles Lutwidge Dodgson, but we won't go into that.
It's a bit of a mouthful.
But if you look down, but he was published the book as Lewis Carroll, so I think it's Lewis Carroll, and it's.
I mean, the character in the story that says it.
It's a character in the story that says
Yeah.
it, which is why giving the quote is quite good.
So what's the character called, though?
Oh, I think it's some mad professor, which is probably again pretty appropriate. I mean, if you enjoyed Alice in Wonderland, you might like Sylvia and Bruno. It's a rather strange sort of rambling book with some wonderful things in it, and some sort of rather odd, not so good bits. But
Well, would it be better to say?
It's got some of his best nonsense poetry, like he thought he saw a banker's clerk descending from a bus. He looked again and saw it was a hippopotamus. If this should come to dine, he said, there won't be much for us. So it's worth reading for things like that.
Would it be better to say as in book name, and then you can have Lewis Carroll 1890 in brackets as the reference? Would that get round it?
That would make me happier.
Yeah, I think
So it's Sylvia and Bruno. Which I suppose goes in italics. Yeah.
And then Carroll 1890 in brackets.
Well,
so that'd be the reference.
Well, I think you say like the map in Sylvia and Bruno at a scale, don't you?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's useless.
Okay.
Like the map.
It still needs to be as, though, doesn't it?
It's unachievable. Oh, and it's useless as. No, as you're right. So it's as isn't as the map in. Is
Sylvia and Bruno, and then
just
reference.
Carroll 1890.
Carroll.
Delete the question, yes.
Yeah.
And then you can put the actual
You want
book.
to delete the second occurrence of map.
Yeah.
It's the map and Sylvia and Bruno.
After 1890, yeah, there.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what that looks like.
Right, space.
Maybe the Carroll 1890 goes after the 1 mile to 1 mile. And I think Sylvia and Bruno goes in italics.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Put the Carroll 1890 after the 2nd mile.
Or at the very end.
I would put it at the very end.
Oh, okay, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do like the quote.
Yes, I do like it. Okay, we're done.
Good. Gosh, hard work doing these odd bits.
Yeah. We're very close though. Look, we just have this much left for the introduction. Okay, so we've dealt with that. Just add reference. Did you want to say challenges again purposely?
Yes, I think. Sorry,
Well, the first one could be issues or something.
Well,
Constraints.
Problems.
Yeah.
Issues or problems. Either of them. You can't require a problem though, can you? Or is it attitude required?
Yeah, I think attitude required.
Okay.
And then I felt we needed to include policy in the community that we're talking about here.
Yeah, okay. Do we address challenges or the challenges? I suppose it depends whether we think, no, maybe just address challenges, because I mean, it's
Don't be too ambitious.
I think without the, I think I'd leave it as it is, because I think that more includes challenges we haven't thought of yet. You know, if we say three challenges, it makes it sound so we know what they all are.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there a hyphen between modelling and policy, and should there be? Oh,
I'm
not sure.
I don't know.
Oh, I see. It goes with,
Like a friendly.
yes. Okay.
Well,
Well, I suppose the alternative we
modelling and
put and, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want and. Okay.
And the fact that we use the word community obviously suggests that we regard this as one, you know, rather than plural.
One
Suggests
thing,
it's one thing. You can delete the marginal reference to add ref. Just a.
Well, have we? Is it down at the bottom somewhere? I mean, do we have it in the list?
Oh,
The reference
yeah,
is
actually,
added
Duncan added it.
reference. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been added. Yeah, I'll go through and check all the references in one go at the end. Okay. I think most of the comments were on the introduction, so.
It's always the hardest thing to get right.
Yeah.
Once you get on to real.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bit where you get a referee's backs up as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
That they read.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
And how long are we planning on going on? Because
I was thinking till 11:30.
okay, I just need to rearrange something. It's all right, keep going. This involves
oh, pardon me. I didn't know if you wanted an and at the end of your list, Valerie.
I never know with, it's one of those grammatical conventions.
It's not a very important point, I agree.
And I tend not to put one because, if they were commas, I'd have an and. As they're semicolons, I don't have an and, but I don't know that this is, well established, but that's the way I was always sort of taught to do it.
Okay.
I don't mind either way, I really don't.
And then we've got Duncan's comment.
It's really just saying what we're not modelling, but I think I said you can just ignore it. Do we really need to say the scope of what we're doing, really? Maybe in terms of we're looking at the epidemiological modelling rather than the economic modelling. I don't know if we've talked about that anyway.
Well, I was trying to make the point that I thought we are trying to think about economic modelling too.
Okay.
So the big point coming out in epidemiology modelling is that we should be working with.
Yeah.
Well, I think the point that we've, particularly when it really is much better to integrate the economic effects at the modelling stage if you can, because otherwise politicians are going to play silly games by taking.
So we could just
and I think we discuss that later on, and of course there's a whole we might strengthen that, and there's a whole economics chapter to.
So should we insert in front of modelling in that last sentence, the part that epidemiological and economic modelling, then one worries about behaviour putting in.
Yeah, should we just leave it? I think it's fine. It was just a thought more than anything. So I think I'm happy the way it is. Yeah.
Valerie, I think you made these changes, didn't you?
Yeah,
so
I did.
Presumably you're happy with them.
I just there were too many sciences. I was just,
Yeah.
So I'm just, do we need to make questions? Are we asking questions or are we making statements? I think, do we need to worry about that, or?
I think it, well, I guess we haven't in the others, have we? So,
I think we decided it's sort of fitted here.
Okay, yeah.
but I mean, you could have international cooperation is essential, make a statement.
I think it's probably about consistency across.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Have we got?
Because
oh yeah, we've got carry on. Yeah.
I keep trying to scroll up and down and realizing I can't.
Sorry. These are the only ones that are
questions.
questions.
Yeah. So, I mean, could we easily, I mean, that one is easy to do. Are they all equally easy to do?
Or just effective cooperation, just a statement.
Yeah.
And equal access to expertise, maybe, or
yeah,
sort of some.
I think the others are.
Because the others are.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
After that. So, yeah.
Kerry Ann, are you happy with that?
Yep.
So what do we say?
Just international cooperation is essential, I think.
Yeah.
Statement.
Maybe I should just turn off track changes.
Be quicker, wouldn't it?
Did you want pandemic or epidemic?
It's now a pandemic. So yeah, that's fine.
Do you know which reference you want?
No. So I was trying to find one like BMJ or Lancet or something, but I don't know if there's a definitive. There's so many that you could choose from.
Do you want effective? No, I think that's okay. I was going to say effective cooperation between countries, but I don't think we need that because we're in a section on international and we've got it in the first paragraph. So I think it's pretty obvious.
I mean, whether you even need a reference to that, because
it's specific, isn't it, really? In terms of
very common knowledge as well, though.
Yeah.
So like picking a random Lancet reference because it seems a bit.
So what we're saying, many infectious individuals apparently only symptomatic for the entire infectious period and others showing minimal non-symptomatic effect. Yeah, I don't know if we do need a reference.
That's universally known, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it needs a reference either. I think.
Some wording suggestions here.
I bow to everyone else's grammar, that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, I put split infinitives and mix up which and that just to keep Chris entertained with my paper. Tracks in from the main.
Did we use R in the beginning? We did, didn't we?
Yeah.
That's fine then.
Yeah, but this is time.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh yes, yeah, yeah.
So you do want. And we've got the Thompson reference there.
Okay, that's fine then.
Boldly go.
Sorry.
Comment from Dennis.
Yes, I just didn't see how this paragraph really squared with what's being said elsewhere. You know, we've had the comment about that. We've already said. I mean, I think there are different points being conflated here. It's why I didn't really think I could. I wasn't quite sure what to suggest instead. I mean, there's the point that even if you know, even if you ignore the differences between countries, the mega model, the way I understand what you mean by mega model, is the 1 mile to 1 mile thing, which we've already said is useless anyway. But then but I think what this paragraph's supposed to be about is something a bit different, which is whether the sort of, let's call it the suite of models that would do for one country is going to necessarily work well for another country, where and again, that would be quite a difficult question, because sometimes it might be a matter of changing parameters, sometimes it might be a matter of really saying the model for one country isn't appropriate to another.
Yeah, is it just the heading, i.e. the bold bit that doesn't fit now? And if we change that to something like allowing for regional differences,
regional variances are important.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Regional variance is important.
Something like that, because that's really what the paragraph is about, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the key point is that people who work outside epidemiological modelling think that there is something wrong with us because we don't have a single model, a universal model.
But that's the same in lots of modelling, like climate. There isn't a single.
No.
Yeah, the physicists came in and told us we were rubbish because we didn't have.
We just use variation.
I think so. Yes. Yeah.
Statistician, I'm not terribly happy.
Yeah, sorry.
I know variance gets used in various ways.
Is epidemiologically important?
Yeah, that's the strongest.
Yeah, and I think that's yes, I think you're absolutely right there. It's just that the remarks here are quite reasonable. It's just that it was just the heading didn't really quite work. Okay.
Oh, put a semicolon in for you there, Dennis. But
I like that.
However,
though. Oh. Do we like that?
Well, the grammatical thing on Word likes it anyway. It's removed the blue underline.
Right.
Yeah.
Keep looking at Peter happy.
Priority 1. Okay. Duncan.
Yeah, fine, and understand. You're critical of see and consider, understand.
See, consider and understand, or the other way around, or
yeah.
I don't know.
Consider and understand, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Without C. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then you just move this bit.
Change paragraph headings. Oh yes,
We've
so
got them now because I mean
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
revised this. They weren't in the version I looked at.
So that's,
Another that which.
yeah.
No, it's not just me.
Sounds good.
The computer thinks you should have a comma, but I don't think you should.
That's, overall, the yeah, that's good. Put that in, yeah. And these are just changes, so I'm happy with the wording. I think
I just rearranged it a
Great,
tiny bit.
yeah.
But
Should communication be more of a like good communication or something? Effective communication.
Yeah, effective, probably, yeah. Oh, the Z thing. This is Oxford University people.
Shut up.
I was told off by
it's going to be an S. Come on.
See? Okay, I wasn't wrong to point that out.
They use Zs. OUPs. They use Zs.
Do you?
They do.
Disastrous.
I don't mind. That'll be corrected, hopefully, by somebody.
Yeah, they'll see what they want anyway.
Yeah.
Let's be consistent anyway.
Yeah, great.
For the moment.
Yeah, fine. Great. Right, what was this?
This was you.
Just me, yeah, exactly. What have I moaned about? 10.3. Not sure if we want to keep arms length model. Yeah. So this is about the co-creation of modelling. So what do we think about that? Modelling advice needs to be co-created with policymakers, or I think this is basically, do they need to be separate? And I think this is Lisa's discussions that you had. Is that right?
Yeah, so I really liked the bit you added in here. Translator was very much the word that John Aston was using.
Yeah.
It's modelling advice. It's co-created.
Or modelling, maybe.
Or is it that there needs to be a continuous
cycle of
conversation? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't want the policymakers to actually
create the advice. So maybe it's modelling be created, co-created. So get rid of advice on that line. Yeah. Okay.
But so its modelling needs to be developed in strong collaborate, or we don't want the policymakers to make the models.
No.
Yeah, I think developed in strong collaborations, that feels more.
Yeah.
What did you just?
Collaboration.
That's more sort of the angle John and Frank were going for, I think.
Yeah. So I was sitting.
About that, isn't that?
Sorry.
The second half of that, with policymakers should co-create models with modelers. Do we need that?
No.
Can't we just go straight to so that new insights, etc.?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've said it exactly. Yeah.
So we're just focusing on collaborating with policymakers here, because clearly modelers also need to collaborate with other scientists.
Yeah.
I think we are. Yeah.
We say
so
more about that later, I think.
Yeah, so we're looking at modelers as a group, I think.
I think you need a comma there where your cursor is at the moment. Sorry, not that cursor.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
So this next bit is really why I was sitting on the fence. One approach would be that models are embedded in policy units, but we're really saying we don't want that, I think.
I fully agree with this word changing.
Okay, so I say however, so it's really.
I think John was very much in agreement with Frank that although that would be brilliant. That's a significant overhaul of the government system, and a far more sort of achievable goal is increasing these networks, collaborations. Yeah. But yeah, we should definitely still mention it like this, otherwise we'll have 100 people tell us.
Yeah.
And then I
would be, yeah.
There's a distinction between.
No, I don't think you do want. I withdraw that now.
Right.
You can consider it if you want, but I think it's
would.
fine as it is.
Okay. Yep. Fine.
It needs to be slightly careful because you've got core government policy, then you've got all the research institutes like AFA and Public Health England who are government funded, and so you're basically saying that those people shouldn't have their jobs. Yeah.
Say that again. So what?
We could put
more
modelers, and that would avoid that.
I think the ideal is that you have better collaboration between those government. So it's the same as Hans was talking about. So there were the government funded research institutes who have to jump when there's a pandemic, and then there's the academics who can choose to jump, and it's making sure. And he said that there wasn't good communication between those two communities. But that doesn't mean that you should remove the government-funded research institutes.
Well, so what's happening now, of course, is Public Health England, which was an arm's length body, is now being taken into not quite as arm's length body of National Institute of Health Protection, therefore under the control of the Department of Health.
So it's that those government researchers in government funded institutes need to be able to maintain independence.
Yes, that's a very good point. Yeah,
I think it is. The government ones need the same independence as independent ones, regardless of where you're funded from. That sort of academic freedom is really important, particularly in the government funded institutions. They should be able to blow whistles and say, this is not what our models say. It's hard to word it, but
we want to say regardless of funding source here or something.
Funding source or funding
control. Regardless of funding, maybe leave it like that. Oh,
and you
regardless
just funding
institution.
Yeah, it's institution. It's regardless of.
Yeah.
Funding institution. Is that what you said? Oh, halfway. And then do we want to say more modelers here? Because some modelers are already embedded in policy units.
Yeah, more.
We don't want to undo the ones that are already there.
Yeah. And actually, it's not a bad thing for the government to have more, scientific advice within it. More resource.
Do we want to change the word model?
So do you want allowing all?
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah, so as a model, it gets very confusing. An alternative structure. Yeah, thank you.
Structure. Yeah.
Models and models.
I'm just going back to the previous sentence. Steps should be taken to ensure that independence is protected by allowing all modelers to publish their findings, or
Yeah, I think that's right. All modelers, on the basis that we're not looking at anything deeper at the moment. Okay. And regardless of the model you used, that needs to change as well. So where the cursor, regardless of the structure.
I don't think you need all that out after outside in the previous line.
Outside government, research out government. Okay.
And we've got to not to, so something's gone wrong there.
Government and not to.
I think the first two is redundant. Yeah.
2 twos.
Translators?
Sorry?
Regardless of structures used, translators are required to interpret.
Oh, should we put that in quotes, maybe? Translators in quotes.
This was the term that John kept saying.
Where you
should I single quotes? That's what Dennis has done.
I mean,
in the previous line, sorry, I'm still worrying about the to not to. Would it be, is it outside government and rather to something, sorry, I've lost it again. Alternative structure would be for strongly looks to be developed, rather than to. So change not to rather than. Sorry, yeah. And get rid of the and as well. Sorry, that previous and. Is that better?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then this sentence.
So what does he mean by translators?
So people who can take science language and turn it into
normal language.
So
modelers.
Then.
Should it be for modelers and for policymakers?
Yeah,
to interpret policy questions for modelers.
Yeah, exactly. If you look through the red below, we've been through every possible. So I think for. So to and with, and then finally for. So yeah, that's great. Yeah.
There.
I think like it depends on the level of policymaker, because that's quite offensive to.
What is, sorry?
Depends on the level of policymaker that you're talking about. So
yeah,
needing translators.
Then yeah, you need translators, but like people I work with
maybe after translators, change that R to maybe. So maybe required.
Yeah.
Just a little bit soft.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good.
Yeah, I think this would be policymakers.
Yeah, I thought it wasn't quite clear who you wanted to train here.
Yeah, okay.
So I wasn't.
Modelers here is what I'm talking about. So training for modelers.
Mm-hmm.
And then policy makers there.
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
Yes, that's a better way to say it. Oh.
Sorry, these were just tinkering.
No,
You probably noticed that I hadn't got this far. Suddenly, Gary had to shut up on the comments in the side.
I also did. Okay, so Ben and Peter.
Yeah, I think there was literally just one comment on this section. I thought I'd already changed this in the previous version, but I agree with Valerie, it's not as clear as it should be, and I think it's perhaps just not copied across. But I think I meant here that it's just more reproducible, and obviously we've discussed already the fact that there's different sciences and decisions, you know, have to be made based on those variety of possible decisions. And I think I meant more about that it's transparent and reproducible, and you can kind of trace the decision and how it's been made. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I remember that we changed that.
I think we had a discussion about this, but no, it's fine. I can edit it again. That's no problem. But
okay. So what do you want to say? Made in
a maybe traceable and reproducible manner is perhaps better than clear and transparent. I think you need a noun at the end, or get rid of in a.
Yes, just delete in A, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
Does that answer your query, Valerie?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
Okay. I couldn't see any of the comments in that section, but it's probably just because people haven't got around to it, rather than the fact there's nothing to.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Ben, did you notice any other changes that I didn't manage to copy over?
No, I don't think so. Not that I saw.
Okay.
It was only I may have missed something, but it was only because Valerie pointed that out, and I think, you know, I'd also had that query before. So.
Are you happy with these?
Yeah, that's fine.
Very minor suggestions, and you can disregard them.
No, I think they're fine.
Oh.
No issue with that.
Okay, and then we've got Chris's new section. We don't have Chris, so maybe we should leave that.
We need headers in it.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
And I only read that first paragraph before I stopped, so I haven't read most of this. Don't know about other people.
No, neither have I actually. Well, I read it briefly, but
I need to read it really.
okay, so maybe we can have a couple of days where people can have a bit more time to look at the second half.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get the paragraph right.
Oh yeah.
Not now.
Not now. And then we did an abstract. Potentially not a question for now, but for acknowledgements, would it be customary to include those who have given feedback to us?
Yes.
Okay. Should we Should I
Well,
ask
that was just a
before we put
reminder
them in?
really I put in there. It's whoever, just
Yeah, yeah.
so we don't forget about it.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I'll write to them all and let them know that we'll put them in acknowledgements and check they're happy with that as well. Before I forget, Dennis wanted a semicolon somewhere.
A paragraph. Very first paragraph section.
Is that what you wanted?
Where are we? Sorry. Yeah, it's line 4. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Next, count the number of adverbs. I don't suppose it's that for you, does it?
Okay. Whew. Finished just on time, I think.
Well done. Perfect.
Yeah. Sorry, that was quite long, but I think useful. We all have to agree. Okay, so we've got next Tuesday for any final adjustments. And the sort of submission admin type things, agreeing on an author order, etc. Do we want a couple more days to look through the second half? How many more days?
Just a lot, as far as I'm concerned, it's just that last section that I haven't read, but which won't take very long. But
Yeah, I can go through it later today. There's that slight issue of us keeping on saving multiple versions. I'm not quite sure.
yes, we need to take it in turn. But we can combine the comments afterwards. So
yeah, I think I started combining too early and then it got confusing this week. So I'll wait till the very end.
I know that we all do it at the very last minute.
Yeah, so should we set a deadline for ourselves for final comments? Do we want to set it before Tuesday so that people can read through? For example, if we made it Friday lunchtime, I can sew it together on Friday afternoon, and then that gives people one final look through for Tuesday. Would that be useful, or is that too tight?
It's fine for me.
Okay.
okay.
This afternoon or nothing for me, so.
Okay, so aim for comments by Friday lunchtime, if you have any. Yeah, focusing on the second section.
Yeah,
and we might have a diagram by then as well.
good, perfect.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lisa.
Well done. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So see you all for our last session, hopefully next Tuesday.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
all.
Tuesday mornings.
Bye.
Bye then.